today we are going to be making chocolate chip cookies, which is a very classic cookie that you probably have had before and most certainly might have made before, but we're gonna go through the steps of that. And there's some interesting details of this classic recipe that I think is important to note, and we're gonna go over a little of that. And I'm also gonna be using a standing mixer instead of an electric hand mixer, and you'll kind of get to see the differences with those. And not everybody has a standing mixer, and you certainly do not need a standing mixer to make good chocolate chip cookies. But we are going to use one today just so you can see how it works and a little bit of the difference there. Okay, so we already prepped ahead of time. I'm gonna wash my hands again, and Josephine is going to go over the first steps of this recipe while I'm washing my hands.
So first, you need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees.
Okay, so the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. So make sure you do that before you start putting all your ingredients together, because you're gonna wanna pop it in the oven as soon as possible so that you can have your cookies. So preheated oven is very important. All right, so step one is preheat your oven to 350. What is step two? We're gonna list the ingredients as we go, and then of course we'll post our recipe as well.
So the second step is you have to cream together the butter.
And the butter has to be softened, right?
Yeah, softened.
Okay. Softened is not melted. Softened just means it's a little squishy. So the best thing to do is have your butter sit out for an hour or two to get room temperature. If you cannot do that and you forgot and you want to speed it up, you can put it in the microwave for about 10 to 15 seconds. You're going to want to really keep an eye on it so that it doesn't melt. But as you can see, our butter is nice and squishy, okay? So go ahead, Josephine. And we cut this recipe that I'm going to post in half because it makes a ton of cookies. And since it's just us and we are definitely on our own here during COVID-19, splitting in half is better for us. So that's what we decided to do. So for our split in half recipe, we only need half a cup, and half a cup is 1 stick. And I say that all the time because it's really important to know that half a cup of butter is just 1 stick. Okay, so you want to put that in there?
Yeah.
Next after the butter is half a cup. So it is half a cup, dry measuring cup of sugar. Josephine, you are expert at this, and you do something very important, which is leveling the ingredients, but I'll do it this time. How's that? Okay. And you will get the next thing ready. What's after sugar that goes in there?
After sugar is brown sugar.
Brown sugar, okay. All right, so Josephine explained this in the last one, but you scoop it and you want to level it. So I'm going to do it over here, but it's basically using the back side of your knife or a straight edge spatula and leveling it so it's nice and flat. So we have that ready. Okay, how much brown sugar do we need?
We need half a cup of packed brown sugar.
So the same measuring cup can be used for this. And Josephine's gonna do it, but this is really, really important to note that you have to pack brown sugar. Brown sugar actually has a moisture to it because it has molasses in it. So you have to pack it to make sure you get it nice and tight inside your measuring cup without any air bubbles or holes. So Josephine's gonna pack that against the side of the brown sugar. And I can hold it nice and stiff for you if you need to. I like to, did you get it good? I like to get a good scoop of it and then press it against the side. You can literally use your container to make it nice and packed, if you can do that. If not, you can always use your hands, if they're clean, to pack it and pull it out. And we probably could put a little bit more in there. This is the first time we've used this. It's the first time we used this pack of butters. This is the first time that we've used this brown sugar, so it's gonna be hard to pack nice. Okay, So we have it nice and packed. And it should kind of come out. And it should go in and look kind of like you just dumped sand from like you're making a sand castle. All right. So we have the butter, we have the white sugar in there, we have the brown sugar in there, and now it says we have to cream this together. And this word is really important. Cream together almost always means sugar and fat. So in this case, it's brown sugar and white sugar and butter. And creaming together almost always also means electric, okay? So that you can get it nice and creamy. So you can use a hand mixer with the metal beaters on it, or you can use a standing mixer, which we're gonna use here right now. Can you stop the video? Okay, so now it's all in there. We put our attachment on, which is the basic attachment. We have it up and ready to go. We're gonna start it off really slow. And then you can speed it up a little bit. You never wanna go past the setting 6, almost never. So now we're at 2. That's 4. And now we're at 6, and we're gonna let that do that for a few minutes. And you're gonna beat in 1 egg at a time. Since we cut the recipe in half, we only need to put in 1 egg. Put in 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I measured it ahead of time. I'm going to measure it ahead of time in a measuring spoon in a custard cup. Just in case I pour way too much or something like that, I can fix it before I put it in with my dough. The next thing we have to put in is 1 teaspoon of hot water. So I measured the hot water in here, and we're just gonna put it right in there. Next is salt, and we need a 4th teaspoon of salt. So we're gonna do that in a custard cup here. Make sure it's done nice and level. Good to go, and then we'll put it in our batter, our dough. Next ingredient that we need is baking soda, and baking soda we need a 1/2 teaspoon for it. And the great thing about baking soda boxes is you always have to level it, but luckily you can level it right on the box. So when you scoop out the baking soda you need, that's too much. You can actually use the top of the box and level it. So it's perfect, okay? So 1/2 teaspoon is gonna go in there, and we'll start this thing right back up. To measure properly as well. So flour is one you never pack, whereas brown sugar you always pack. So you need to make sure that you're scooping it instead of packing it. So if I just do this, it's way too packed. So what I like to do for flour is to actually take a spoon, big old spoon, and scoop it into the measuring utensil that I am using. So then I know it's not, ooh, it's like blowing up here. So once it's heaping, you're going to take your back of your butter knife and level it nice and even and put it in the bowl. Okay, so we have our flour all measured out inside of a bowl, and we're gonna put it slowly into the KitchenAid mixer. If you put it in all at once, it's hard for the mixer to mix it, so we're gonna do a little bit at a time. So turn it on. I'm gonna do a little bit at a time. And let it catch up.
So you take your baking sheet and you have to line it with parchment paper, not wax paper, because wax paper can burn and you can't really bake wax paper because it's wax. So you're going to scoop your cookie dough. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just drop it.
What's something you should never do with cookie dough that has egg in it?
Never eat the cookie dough.
Why?
Because you can get salmonella and get sick.
So this recipe, these drop cookies are only in the oven for about 10 minutes. I always put a little less on and then kind of check them as we go. And it's really important to know that a lot of cookies actually continue to cook once they come out of the oven because they're on some very hot surface. So they're still continuing to cook as they're sitting. So we're gonna put these in for 9 minutes and check. And we did two different ones. We did one on a cookie sheet and we did one in mini muffin pans. So they'll be like little mini muffin cookies. One here. And definitely have a parent or adult help you if you have not done this before. Okay, and we're gonna set our timer for 9 minutes and then check it. Little peek there. And it looks like it needs about 1 more minute. So remember I said it was 10 minutes. And so it is gonna use the full 10 because we did only put 9 on. But it's always good to be safe than sorry. You can never go back and take time away from baked goods. So we have about a minute left. Once that minute's done, it's gonna look like they're maybe not done all the way, but again, I promise you they're gonna continue to cook as you let them sit and cool. They need to sit out for at least 5 to 10 minutes. As they're sitting out, they're gonna start to cook a little bit more and harden, and then be cool enough for you to eat without falling apart. And they will still be ooey and gooey after 10 minutes. Huge step to the end of baking anything is turning your oven off. This is something I stress all the time in my classroom because of course it is dangerous and wasteful. So double check that as soon as you take something out or right before you take it out, you turn your oven off.
So now we have to wait 10 minutes before we can eat the delicious cookies.
Meanwhile.